As a video game channel, I have to say that I think video games are the best medium to escape into. They're immersive, distinctly non-passive, and offer the most detailed fantasies possible because they incorporate the storytelling and visuals of movies, the thoughtful, meandering detail and length of books, with the unique addition of personal investment, exploration, and failure. Hence why escapism is more often associated with video games than movies or books. I consider this quite a compliment to games, as it shows how powerful of a tool they are for world building and storytelling. Here are some examples of escapist games and some of the tricks they use to sweep us off into their worlds. Red Dead Redemption incorporates 3 major things which are highly effective for immersion. These are sound design, world authenticity, and enjoyable gameplay. Ambient noises like blowing wind, singing birds, and creaking wood are essential to create a realistic sandbox, and along with music, both ambient and melodic, which builds upon the setting by taking classic tropes of previous spaghetti western movies, all comes together to subconsciously immerse the player. World authenticity is pretty obvious. It just means everything the player sees and interacts with feels like it could be real, at least mostly. When this butts heads with gameplay, playability and fun overrule realism in most games. Our brains expect certain tropes when playing a game, like regenerating health, semi-predictable AI, and being able to carry way more than a human should. So this does not break immersion. Mass Effect has a similar method of immersion as Red Dead. What Mass Effect lacks in sound design or gameplay, it makes up for in its world and characters. It has a bigger focus on interactivity in its story, which makes the player feel more invested than with linear games. Being able to make choices which have a measurable impact on scenarios moving forward transforms a game from an enjoyable phantasmagoria to, well, a video game. And Mass Effect is one of the best examples of what the medium can accomplish. Not only do actions during action sequences have impact, but dialogue and other choices will uniquely shape how characters interact with the player and how the story unfolds, ignoring the, ultimate ending. Battlefield 4 might not seem to be as much of escapist fantasy as the other two, but I believe it is just as powerful. It has some of the best realized, realistic sound design, graphics, and gameplay, which all tie together to ensnare and enrapture the player in combat. What is most impressive, though, is how dynamic, spontaneous, user-generated cinematic epic moments fit for a war film can occur throughout a match. Everything happening is all controlled by people with near complete agency to do whatever they want, which makes each battle feel authentic and engrossing. Battlefield is not unique in these traits. PlanetSide, Arma, and many other games have large-scale immersive combat, but I just have more experience with Battlefield. No other medium can come close to being as immersive as video games, and therefore they deserve praise and caution. I find it fitting that Oblivion begins in a prison. The escapism offered by that world, or any fantasy, can turn into something that one cannot escape, not by lock and key, but because reality comes to look like the prison. Unappealing because once one gains so much power in a virtual space, by the end, returning to the same old real life can feel restrictive. So far, I've really only talked about escapism in the form of books, TV, movies, and video games. But there are obvious other methods which need to be mentioned, like music. Listening to Vivaldi's Four Seasons or Godspeed You Black Emperor or To Pimp a Butterfly can immerse you in another sonic world. I think the human mind's ability to get swept off by just noises is even more impressive than through movies or games. And of course there's audiobooks and poems, which are obvious derivatives of mediums already mentioned. But social media is probably the biggest and most contentious form I have yet to mention. It can be for people everything that movies or games can be, but it is saturated with reality, so it can be hard to tell what is true and what is not. Most people play a persona based on their true personality, but markedly different when they are online. No one is happy all the time, and if you think whenever you aren't, that you are living life wrong in some way, it will be a downward spiral of self-doubt and unhappiness. Escapism into social media can therefore be quite dangerous, because reality and fantasy are racemic. Life is a game. It is by far the most complicated and difficult game in existence. If someone was to make a rulebook for how to win life, just imagine how many words it would take. In life, we rarely know if we are making the right decision, if we will get rewarded, or if we are about to lose, whatever that even means. Comparing this to any game humans have created, and even the most complex games, seem trivial. There is a general consensus that Dwarf Fortress is the most complicated game ever made. Released in 2006, it is a construction and management simulator with such a high difficulty that its unofficial slogan is "Losing is fun." Fortresses can grow to immense size, almost 35,000 square miles, with the player micromanaging every dwarf's task to an insane degree. As one Redditor put it, Dwarf Fortress models an entire fantasy world, from the amount of grass left after an elephant passes by, to the rain shadow effect of mountain ranges, to the trade and politics of the inhabitants. Yet of course, real life is infinitely more complex than this. We play games because we are in complete control within the game, know the exact rules, can see clear and near instant rewards and punishments, and are free to experiment. But if games are too simple, then we don't feel like we're accomplishing something worthwhile. Though some games are simpler than others, they all give our minds a break from the infinite complexity of the game of life for something more manageable. Games offer us the reward of improving and winning in a setting free from the messiness that plagues our lives. All fantasies act like this, since we can clearly see everything that's going on, or at least we should, and can understand every aspect of the fantasy world and story. There is much less ambiguity when reading about Frodo and Sam than there is about asking your boss for a raise. Fantasies are an easy yet rewarding place to truly master another world, something very, very few people actually get to do in the real world. But what if we want to truly escape? Should we completely reject reality? Escapism can be fun, it can be beneficial, it can be detrimental. It all comes down to motive and dosage. It can serve as a well-needed break from reality, and since reality will never be as good as we need it to be, escapism isn't going away. Will there someday be a kind of escapism singularity, where reality and fantasy are interchangeable? There might even come a time when reality becomes so wearisome that fantasy is the only tolerable escape. But on the other extreme, perhaps one day when we have successfully colonized the galaxy, and faster than light travel is invented that makes the very idea of boredom anachronistic, maybe then we'll no longer have to look to these stars, or these stars, or these stars, but will instead be completely fulfilled with just these stars. Or maybe, one day, humans will bring about a nuclear holocaust that will make mere existence mentally and physically exhausting, and there will be no room for fantasy in any form. We will not know nor care for what happened to Luke Skywalker or the Blade Runners or Zelda, or quaint shopkeepers from Cyrodiil, because subsistence living is all that will be left. Maybe it won't take the apocalypse to make us forget these things, since new and exciting fantasies will always be springing up and enthralling people, pushing out what we once held so dearly. The fantastical zeitgeists of the future will be far different from our own, just like ours are different from those of the past. Let's hope people living 1,000 years from now have their own equivalents of Star Wars, Batman, Casablanca, The Witcher, The Simpsons, because how else would they survive the game we call life? Thanks for watching. Punch that like button if you disliked the video, and have a nice life.